Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the moment of truth. Oh, when it rains, it pours. Sean Puff Daddy Combs, later known as Sean Puffy Combs, then eventually Sean P. Diddy Combs, then eventually just P. Diddy, then D. Before it's all over, he just won't be saying a name at all. What's your name? Nothing. If he thought that 2023 was rough, 2024 is turning out to be hell, and it's barely started. Sean Combs was accused of rape, gang rape, and a million other things last year. And while I have not done a page-by-page inventory of all the charges against him and all of the pages of each of the lawsuits, putting on my just critical thinking glasses here, a number of the descriptions that were given and circumstances described, they could be seen as plausible, though a few of them they just don't seem to pass the smell test on the surface. Had one woman who was claiming that Puff Daddy assaulted her at one place and then apparently went somewhere else and did it again at another time somewhere else. I started having flashbacks in that case to some of the accusations against Bill Cosby. Not that I put P. Diddy or whatever he's calling himself this week in the same category as Bill Cosby. That's like mixing apples and lug nuts. But when somebody is making accusations, especially against high-profile individuals, and it's just their word, there's no real evidence other than take my word for it, it happened. It is not rude, nor is it unreasonable to say that even for someone of Puff Daddy's uncommitted nature, shall we say, when it comes to black empowerment, there's nothing wrong with saying that if the guy did it, he should go to prison, but if he didn't do it, he shouldn't. Now, normally, as in the past, whenever I've commented on one of these kind of cases where a black man's being accused of some act of sexual impropriety, I usually will say something like, I'm talking about R. Kelly, but this isn't about him, it's bigger than that, or same thing with Bill Cosby. In the case of Puff Daddy, at least on the surface, this seems to basically be about him. And for the most part, he put himself in the trick bag. See, this is the problem that goes along with a lot of the would-be black jet setters who call themselves trying to be living that life. And they're out there doing the most to make themselves into the poster child as one of the party people. We are the party people. Well, when you got the tons of ads and billboards and TV spots and such showing you with alcohol, surrounded by a bunch of pretty young things, even under the best of circumstances, even for someone who actually does deserve our sympathy and support, which I don't think I would ever put Diddy into that category, it doesn't take much imagination to figure out that sooner or later somebody might decide to get cute and accuse you of something. And especially where black men are concerned, you have to be triply vigilant. I've said for many years now that everybody knows the fastest way to bring a black man down is to claim or to show that he can't keep his pants up. Well, that was 2023. Now it's 2024, so things are going to be different this year, right? Of course not. Third verse, same as the first. Seeing as how he works in the music business, I figured that Diddy would appreciate an expression like that. So now, most recently, he's been accused of sexual assault, sexual harassment, drugging, threatening, etc. This time not by a woman, but by a man. A producer from his most recent album says that during 2022 and 2023, he lived and traveled with Diddy. And during that time, apparently, there was when all sorts of serious illegal activity occurred. The producer says that Diddy forced him to procure sex workers and to pressure this guy into engaging in unwelcome sex acts with these sex workers, which is also what one of Diddy's accusers accused him of last year. Now, this producer also said that during all of this stuff that was going on, not to mention accusations that there were underage girls and all the rest of it, but apparently the most important accusation that was made in this lawsuit was where this producer said that P. Diddy had groped his rear area, his rear orifice, and attempted to groom him into accepting a homosexual relationship by showing him explicit videos and claiming that it was a normal practice in the music industry. Now, I find that phrase, a normal practice in the music industry, that Diddy would say something like that. Not saying that this actually happened because we only have the guy's word for it. These are all allegations. But using wording like that, well, that does seem consistent with a number of different things that we've heard about a number of different people in the music industry. These are the kind of accusations that were also made against Lizzo, you'll recall. Some of Lizzo's dancers were claiming that she coerced or otherwise pressure or compelled them to engage in sex acts and such. So yeah, there does seem to be more than a little consistency with the idea that in the music business, they pride themselves on having a real wild time. Now, because the connections between the entertainment business and politics are absolutely incestuous, That's part of the reason why I felt the need to make this the subject of this morning's briefing, because several years back, P. Diddy had become the face of what I guess was the DNC's voter outreach program with the rather colorful name Vote or Die. P. Diddy was the face of that too. So everything from these alcoholic beverages to having people saying vote or die without even knowing A, what they're voting for, and B, what they're going to get. Because if you vote for the wrong reasons, death will probably be what you get out of it. Instead of vote or die, you might wind up voting and then dying. And of course, I think we can all understand the irony. Here Puff Daddy was basically trying to make himself into an ally of the Democratic Party, or at the very least carrying water for what's in their interest. And the Democrats were the ones in New York and in California and elsewhere who wrote the very laws that are being used to attack him. He's having accusations thrown at him for things that people are alleging happened over 30 years ago, more than 3 decades ago. A hell of a lot of you who are listening to me right now, you weren't even born when these alleged incidents allegedly took place. But this is what's coming against him. So what it shows is never do a favor for a favor. And I'm not going to be continuing the gossip carousel about this. I'm sure that there are going to be folks who are going to be mentioning Meek Mills in the comment section. Well, if people want to do that kind of hip-hop beefing, we'll leave that for the breakfast schlubs. My point about this happens to be that if you got a lot of black folks out there who think to themselves that somehow they are isolated from what happens to the rest of black folks, that your money is going to somehow insulate you, it won't. When the accusations come, be they justified or not, you're still going to find yourself behind the 8 ball. So Diddy can be Mr. Life of the Party if he wants to. Just keep in mind it's exactly that kind of over-the-top, oh, everything we do it big, we're partying nonstop over here. That's precisely the kind of lifestyle and the kind of behavior and the kind of reputation that lends itself to these types of accusations. That makes it where people just assume, oh, with all the parties going on and the alcohol's flowing and the pretty young things around, oh, isn't it inevitable that somebody like this would just decide to take it too far? Actually, it's not. But that's not going to stop them from going ahead and acting as if it did anyway. So P. Diddy's getting raked over the coals. But he's not the only one. Wendy Williams, she's also had a rough few years, but 2024 is also looking to be one for the books for her too. Because you see, Lifetime pitched the idea to Wendy Williams' representatives that she should take part in a documentary. They wanted to make a documentary about her. Where is Wendy Williams? And it was one of Wendy Williams' folk who decided that they were going to say, oh yeah, Wendy, you should go ahead and do this. But now they're singing a different tune. They're saying that Lifetime has exploited Wendy Williams. Why? Because in this documentary, Wendy Williams is seen looking disoriented. And in one clip, doesn't seem to recognize her own manager. In another scene, the same manager confronts her over empty liquor bottles found in her apartment. This is what Lifetime's doing to her. And it was her own publicist who set her up for this. Oh, her publicist who's trying to be screaming all kinds of innocence now. This is not the project that Wendy Williams signed up for. That's not the project that the producers from Lifetime brought to us. That's not what I told her this was going to be about. No, actually, this is exactly the project that they brought to them. Because this is what it's about. Wendy Williams, she's been a slow-moving car wreck for a number of years, and now it's just time for the crash. Everybody knew it was coming. The woman's claiming that she's got dementia these days or something like that. Well, the thing is, Wendy Williams has made a career out of trying to be as mean-spirited and cruel to people as possible. She's gone ahead and made sport of other people's suffering. She's gone ahead and made it a point that with other people, she would turn complete gossip fodder out of their suffering and pain. So now you got Lifetime giving her the treatment. And I can't feel sorry for her. By the way, isn't this the same Lifetime, the exact same Lifetime that was putting out series after series about surviving R. Kelly? Oh yeah, they were such champions for women. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean black women, to hear Shea Butter Twitter tell it. Because we have a whole lot of feminists who lurk around places even like this. And whenever you turn one of their sacred cows to hamburger, their Twitter fingers immediately run wild. Well, now you got Lifetime, who all of these black feminists, they just loved Lifetime last year. And for the last few years, oh, they were just the biggest Lifetime devotees. They just loved Lifetime. Hey, they just telling the truth about these black men. You just don't like, they just telling the truth about these black men. Well, they're telling the truth about Wendy Williams. So they're going to go ahead and cheerlead that too, right? Because we're being intellectually honest here, right? Nah, as far as they're concerned, you see how they do it, sister? No, Wendy Williams put herself into the trick bag here. She's the one who decided to make her brand flash and trash, this kind of garbage. And now what's happened is that her situation has taken a turn for the worse. And the white media is not giving her any sort of slack. They ain't giving her any room. No privacy here. Hell no. That's when they're running up for the cameras. They're like, ooh, maybe she'll wind up like Anna Nicole Smith before it's all over if we put enough pressure on her. Hey, we know that she apparently seems to have something of a substance abuse issue. Well, we already know that if you put a ton of pressure on somebody who's grappling with substance abuse, they're going to run straight to that bottle or to that needle or to whatever else it is that they happen to be self-medicating on. And that being the case, hey, how long before she turns up in a hotel room or at her home lifeless? How long before that happens? Yeah, they know exactly what buttons to push. That's what they're doing. At the very least, maybe they can make her lash out. Anything that'll be fodder for the next TMZ story. So yeah, they're going ahead and putting the screws to her. Wendy Williams, getting roasted by Lifetime. All of those black feminists who were loving Lifetime because they were going after Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, please don't start hating Lifetime now. This is your station. This is your network. Yeah, you're finding out they don't do white women like this. They're going to go ahead and do this to black women because they were never for black women to begin with. And by the way, while we're on the subject of Bill Cosby, it was no less than Wendy Williams who made it a point to go in on Cosby. I mean, she was making all kinds of accusations against this man, saying that, oh yeah, I heard about this man back in the 90s. She was butthurt because she decided that she was going to roast Bill Cosby. And according to her, I guess Bill Cosby's representative said, you know what, she needs to apologize for that. This is back when she was on the radio, a struggling little wannabe mouthpiece on the radio back when. And apparently she's still nursing a grudge because she claims that the management at the radio station made her apologize for stuff that she had said about Bill Cosby back in the day. Well, she decided that once she had her little TV show, it was going to be time for some payback, or at the very least, time to get some mileage out of Bill Cosby.
Anyway, so as you all know, Bill Cosby, who's 81, was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in state prison. He was sentenced yesterday, and this means that he has to do no less than 3 years. That's what they say, no less than 3. He's not eligible for parole or anything like that until after the 3. Well, he was also denied bail and taken into custody. Of course, his wife was not there to support him. You know, she's his foil in all this. You know Camille knew stuff. And none of his kids were there, which says a whole hell of a lot. Nobody was there for him. And he expressed no remorse. And the judge says, I'm not permitted to treat him any differently based on who he is or who he was. I'm fighting with my mother because my mother feels like he's 81 years old, Wendy. For goodness sakes, he doesn't need to be going to jail. Like, Mommy, what the Methuselah are you? He raped women with thigh gappers, Ma. What are you talking about?
See what the woman's saying? Oh, his wife wasn't there with him, and his kids weren't there with him. That tells me a lot, doesn't it? Well, where the hell is Wendy Williams' family at now? You see any Wendy Williams folks around her? Doesn't that tell us a lot? Not to be messy or anything, but Wendy Williams' life has been exploding into the headlines and none of it's been pretty. This woman has had a number of health issues that she's been dealing with for the last few years. There have been people who've been claiming that maybe it was all just an act. If it was, it's a pretty good one she's been putting up. Because for the last year almost, this woman has actually been in a facility that has to deal with cognitive issues. So apparently she's dealing with some real mental issues right now. And the situation got so bad that Wells Fargo, of all entities, they had her placed into a financial guardianship. So what that means is somebody else is controlling basically all the aspects of her life having to do with her finances, even controlling who it is that she's allowed to have contact with. A very similar situation as what happened with Britney Spears. And I don't consider it at all ironic. In fact, it's totally predictable. You got the bootleg media like The Root pointing out that, gee, the judge who ruled that Wendy Williams was going to have to give up her money, the control of her finances, and much of her life over to some court-appointed conservator who's going to be controlling every aspect of her life and she can't do anything about it. Oh, now you got the Root saying, well, the judge, there's been questionable investigations of this judge in the past. Yeah, you mean the same way that Bill Cosby got railroaded into prison by a corrupt judge? Now you got bootleg media saying, oh my God, Wendy Williams, she was just railroaded out of her freedom and out of her own money by some corrupt suspect judge. Yeah, when it happened to Bill Cosby, it wasn't a concern. As far as she was concerned, that tells us a lot. It happens to her. Now we're supposed to have sympathy for her. She's the one who helped to set this kind of stuff up. When it came to Bill Cosby, she wasn't questioning the judge's verdict, even though it was blatantly clear that the judge had violated the law, violated the Constitution, violated the man's rights. She wasn't concerned about judges doing that then. She would like to applaud it. Oh, Bill Cosby, he got what he deserved. Now she's trying to claim the same thing happened to her. And she's expecting people to give her sympathy. Oh, now we're questioning judges. Now. And now, of course, you got this documentary that apparently has documented, got on video, a number of the things that have been going on in Wendy Williams' life. Now, believe it or not, I would actually be reluctant to use the K word, karma, to describe what's happening to her. That's simply because I'm not exactly spiritual like that, believe it or not. But in Wendy Williams' case, I do believe that character is destiny. And when you have somebody who's made an entire career out of being boldly, ostentatiously, just going out of their way to show how utterly contemptuous they are of other people's suffering, or when other people are getting dragged through the mud, they make it a point that I want to show this person, show the whole world that I think that any of these people, oh, they're all just beneath me. Well, then what happens when other people are being cold and callous about your suffering? Are you going to suddenly then be appealing that I'm a human being? You can't have a standard where you decide that other people are going to be raked over the coals and you make that into fodder, and then when it's your turn, all of a sudden, please recognize my humanity. Because Wendy Williams did not care even after Bill Cosby was able to prove in court that the judge was biased and corrupt as hell. That was a crooked kangaroo court. That was not a trial. That was just a public lynching. And that being the case, Wendy Williams didn't care about that. She was nursing a grudge from years ago. As far as she was concerned, Cosby's fair game. All that garbage that was said about him proven to be completely and thoroughly false. She didn't care about that. Wendy Williams chose to play the fool for the white media. And I'm sure that she thought that that bleach blonde wig that she had on, I wouldn't bet you she's bald as hell under there. And she's thinking to herself that being the belle of the ball for these little white media executives, that she was on the inside looking out. She was on the team. And they're showing her now, nah. White supremacy loves to do this. They love a joke that takes a long time to pay off. It's part of the reason why being cruel to somebody who they pretended to befriend, that's one of these white supremacists' favorite little pranks. They love that. They love laughing behind somebody's back, and it's like as soon as this person slips up, oh, we gonna show them. Doesn't matter if it's Tiger Woods or whomever. Oh yeah, they'll pretend to be your best buddy until you go ahead and have some sort of problems, and all of a sudden they show what they've always thought about you. So Wendy Williams, she's proving what I've always told you. When white power is done with one of its tools, it breaks its tool. The same way that she was trying to see how much mileage she could get for views and clicks out of the suffering of other people, now it's being done to her. By outlets that have a hell of a lot more influence and reach than she ever had. People like Wendy Williams empowered the white media to go in on black people, and it does not matter whether or not the accusations are true or not. All that matters is the accusations are being made. And there's always a couple of unscrupulous Negroes who can always be counted on to just go ahead and say, you know what, I'm trying to climb this little old ladder, so I'll go ahead and do masses bidding. I'll go ahead and be the black person who sells the soap and breaks the ice to go in on this other black person over here. I'm just trying to climb this ladder. It's pretty tough, competition's fierce. They'll go ahead and play that game too. It doesn't really matter if the accusations are true or not. Where a black person's concerned, all that matters is the accusations being made. And what's Wendy Williams' defense going to be? Notice how nobody's saying that none of this stuff is true. What they're saying instead is, oh, she was set up. This is just so wrong. This is just so wrong. Well, hell, enjoying and profiting from other people's suffering, that's been part of Wendy Williams' brand. She made it her hallmark to have that look of contempt on her face. Whenever talking about somebody that she didn't like, if she says something that's particularly grimy, or she's going ahead and making all sorts of unsavory allusions about the person, she'll sit there with that look as if to say, yeah, we all know that this person's dirty. They deserve this. That. She always did that. And now what's happening is it's being done to her. And she's looking for sympathy. Is she expecting someone to come to her rescue? Who? Who's going to stick up for Wendy Williams? She danced with the devil, and what she's finding out is that devil don't change. change. The same white media that she's spent so long feeding and empowering and going ahead and getting other people to clap like trained seals for whatever they wanted them to applaud. Now that same white media inevitably has turned on her because that's what the white media always does. And I'm sure the same feminates who were going ahead and applauding Lifetime, that's right, you just telling the truth about these black men. Now they're going to be the same ones going, oh my God, I can't believe that they're doing Wendy Williams. Like, they always do black women like this. Well, they wouldn't be able to do black women like this at all if we didn't have black women helping them do it. And Wendy Williams was one of them. This is the reason why when it comes to the white media, it is not some victimless crime to just mindlessly repeat their narratives, to lend your melanin to the white media's character assassination campaigns that they frequently carry out. As Wendy Williams saw it, she was playing the game, but she wound up getting played because that's the way it always goes. The white media, white power in general, they'll have you out there being a booster for their political campaigns one moment, and then as soon as you help them get into office, they immediately write laws to put you in prison. And then you help the white media carry out their defamation campaigns against black people, and that's okay because you're getting caked off, so it's all good. And then those exact same white media networks and stations then decide it's time to make fodder out of you. Oh, and they drag your family into it. You know, Wendy Williams' son, he says that he never exploited his mother for money. Just even saying that, for them to even put that in there, that's to imply question mark. But then again, that's what Wendy Williams did with Bill Cosby's family, now didn't she? Yeah, she's finding that those exact same defamation techniques that she used, they're now being used against her. Except unlike Bill Cosby, he still has full control of his faculties. He's not under financial guardianship. He's not at his lowest point where he can't even defend himself. Wendy Williams, though, is. These days she's saying that she's broke. That's very ironic. Bill Cosby's not. Bill Cosby's not broke at all. Wendy Williams, she says she's broke. And that if it happened to her, it could happen to anyone. Well, here she is. She's showing empathy and sympathy for her own situation, after making a career of showing absolute contempt for anyone else's. And all the time that Bill Cosby was having his rights violated, the man had his reputation tarnished, the man had his freedom taken, and all that time he never shed a single tear. Meanwhile, Wendy Williams, she's got the waterworks on full. And I'm not saying that I take any pleasure in what's happening to her. My question is, why didn't she recognize the humanity of Bill Cosby and recognize what was happening to him? Now she wants to jump on some sort of bandwagon. Bill Cosby never shed a single tear. But Wendy Williams, here she is broken by this. Totally and completely broken by this. See, you don't have any film or video or any documentary nonsense about Bill Cosby being shown inebriated or otherwise not in full control of his faculties. Beer bottles and liquor bottles all around. When Kamal Dumbbell made his documentary, which was not a documentary at all, it was just a high-profile, high-budget hit piece against Cosby that the white media paid for, he didn't actually have anything that he could actually attack Cosby with. So instead it was, just put anybody in front of the camera who's willing to say something against the man. And when you've been in entertainment for decades on end, hell, when you're a high-profile black person who's been around for decades on end, there's always going to be a number of people who can be counted on to get in front of the cameras and go ahead and say, you're bad, this, that, and the third, with no evidence whatsoever. They just go ahead and say it. Everybody knows that that's the easiest trick in the world to pull, so the white media pulls it. Well, now it's being done against Wendy Williams. And what is she going to say? Is she going to say, give me the benefit of the doubt? She doesn't have a radio show, doesn't have her TV show anymore. So that being the case, she doesn't have her platform. So how is she going to get any of her well-wishers to coalesce around any sort of message? So any of you folks listening to me who are thinking to yourselves that maybe, just maybe, you might want to dip your own toes into the putrid, polluted waters of the white media, well, just take a look at what's happening to P. Diddy and to Wendy Williams. You can go ahead and think the white media is your friend all you want. They'll invite you to the parties up in the hills. And oh yeah, you'll be hearing about these studio executives and movie moguls and all of their wild stories, snorting lines of coke off a hooker's rump and that kind of stuff. Yeah, they'll be doing that, but the problem is white supremacy is going to insulate them and protect them. When the accusations come, what you're going to be having is you're going to have the white media trying to impugn those accusations, and whoever they are, well, we're not going to be making that front page anything. That's what they'll be doing for them. Meanwhile, anything happens to you, they're going to be making it front page news, there could be documentaries about it. Oh, I thought that only black people cared about that. Nah, when the white media sees a chance to lambaste and to crucify a black person, all of a sudden, doesn't matter how obscure you thought you were, ain't no such thing as that. Nothing happens in a vacuum under white supremacy. You can either go ahead and figure that out now, or you can go ahead and do like P. Diddy and Wendy Williams. You can figure it out later on, when you're at your weakest point, and after you've helped do everything you can to bolster the white media machine that's killing you, well, let's just say if you have a chance, you'll want to make a documentary called Surviving the Lifetime Channel. That is, if you survive. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Brian Ellis, Nadia Nduku, Tomorrow Bird, Terrence Gaines, and Deborah Cooper. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.